Hi, I'm Diana DeRosa, and I am with the Equus Film Festival. We are at the Kentucky Horse Park, and nowadays we're calling it the Equus Film and Arts Festival. And that really fills right in with what you do as a photographer. So Patrice, tell us a little bit more about you.
I am a photographer and filmmaker. Part of my photography is working with the animals as a portraitist. So I work as a animal photographer in advertising and also in fine arts. The other part of my work is documentary filming and photography. And my subject is the relationship between humans and animals and responsibility and the roles that we have towards the animals on our planet that we share.
You know, that's kind of interesting because I'm a sports photographer. So what you and I do is very different. And is there a way that you choose the subjects, or do you just have people, wait for people to come to you, or do you actually, kind of some of that stuff isn't about the people, but it's about something that you create?
It's kind of both, actually. At some point, I'm always starting with the idea of what do I want to say. That's the common denominator. What do I want to say? And then from that point on, sometimes I'll find a subject based on my interests, and that subject will pop up. For example, like this documentary I'm doing that is shown at the Equus Film Festival on an equine therapy program. So that came out from my personal interest. At some other point or in some other situations, somebody will come to me and say, I would like you to tell my story. I would like you to be my voice. And that's how it comes up.
So let's talk a little bit about this film. What are some of the key points that came out doing this? And how did your photography become so much a part of it?
In terms specifically for the documentary?
Yes.
So for the documentary and the film that I did this past summer, it is based on equine therapy for veterans and first responders living with PTSD. And so because I had participated in another project prior to that with veterans in Quebec, I became interested with the subject, and I'm curious about the subject, and I wanted to know more about it. And so obviously because I'm a documentarist, it became logical to use my work to go in that direction and tell a story. And photography came in that part of the work as well, because for me it's complementary. There's part of my work that is filming, and there's a way to talk to people. There's a way to say things when you're filming. And then on the other side, photography came in when I wanted to do portraits with the veterans. Because with the portraits, there was another way to give my message or to convey a message to the people looking at the pictures.
You capture that moment.
Yes.
And you may have to take 100 photos to capture that moment. But when you do capture it, it speaks volumes.
You know it.
Yeah.
You just know it.
Yeah.
And you know that.
And you know it, yeah, you know that.
When I have an idea in mind, I already see the image. Even though it's not the image that's going to come out, but you already see the image to some extent. And you start working with the person. And then for me, as a portraitist, when I take pictures, it's a conversation that I'm having with the person I'm taking pictures of. So the camera is just a tool. It's not the end of it. It's just a way to converse together. And through the camera, or with the camera, or along with the camera, we are able to do that conversation that eventually becomes the image that I think of them. And so the image is somewhat a mirror of who I am in regards to the person I'm taking a picture of. But it's also in respect to the person. I'm going where that person wants to go, or as far as that person wants to go. I'm not pushing her or him. I'm just going where he or her wants to go.
You know, the difference between sports photography, what I do and what you do, is that I just am trying to capture a moment. Sometimes when you're that close like you are to an image, as soon as they think there's a camera there, you sort of have to, get them not to think about the camera. How do you do that?
Coming from photojournalism in my first years, I always told people when I was doing my photo series I'm there, but I'm not there. And I believe that it's often in the way you behave, in the way you become somewhat invisible. You can be in somebody's personal space, but they won't worry or mind about you because at some point, the way you're behaving with them is, I'm there, but it's not about me. It's always about you. And my body language reflects that in the way I work. It's about you. So they're not worrying about me, they're just doing their things. And naturally what happens most of the time is that after a while, they understand that I do understand the way they do their things, and they also understand, or they just get somehow tired of wondering about me, and they know that I'm just doing my job, and they stop looking at me. They stop recognizing that I'm there, they just do their stuff. And that's when it becomes even more interesting, because I'm not trying to influence the events that are happening around me. I'm just being an invisible part of that history that I'm shooting.
It's part of that whole, forgetting that you're there, because now it becomes a conversation.
Yes.
In the beginning, it's, oh gosh, there's a camera. But then suddenly they get into the conversation and then they forget about the camera.
And you have a privilege as a photographer when you're doing this to be able to be, to an extent, in the story and telling it from a point of view that nobody can see. The idea is for me that if I take a picture and you're looking at a picture and you're saying, yes, I saw it exactly like that, I was there, that's not interesting for me. What I would like is, where were you? Because I was there and I didn't see things like that. Mm-hmm. And that tells me that I was able to convey a story or to bring a story on a different level, seen differently. And when a person at the end tells me where were the person I was taking pictures of, or the group, at the end of my story tells me, you're leaving because where were you? That's what I love. Yeah, exactly. This is a thing. I didn't want them to worry about me, and this is what they did. That's perfect.
Okay. And for some final comments, what was there something that you didn't expect to happen during that documentary? And was there a change from beginning end in you, rather than what came out of it? And do you have some final words?
When you do a documentary, it's always, even though you do a script, I mean, documentary in terms of socially speaking, it's not fiction. It's not theater documentary, but you are telling the story that's going to happen. You do not know to an extent what's going to happen. So there's always something that's going to happen that you did not know that was going to be happening in the next few minutes or the next day or so on. So there's always that part of insecurity that you have to deal with. The better you're prepared, the easier it's going to be to improvise when it happens. So you have to know your subject, but still, you're going to be changed by what's happening, because people are giving you their trust to be in the story in front of you, and they give their 100% to you. So you have to give your 100% to them as well, in the way you work, in the way you're present, in the way you're focused on what's happening. And so that, for the other part of your question, that transforms you every time, because you're always in the learning process when you're doing a documentary. Even though you know your subject because you did your research, still it's happening and you're there. So that's your privilege, and you're learning from it from 1 minute to the other. That's also another privilege. And you've got these people trusting you with your work and your camera enough to say, I'm going to tell my story with who I am, and you can film it. Wow, what more can I ask for?
I think that's the beauty of it, is actually things come out of it that you don't even expect. But Patrice, if somebody wants to know more about you, what can they do?
Well, they can visit my website, and I'm also present. I've got a page on Facebook and on Instagram. I am present as well. So, pretty easy to find.
Thank you very very much. Well, I am Diana DeRosa. I am with the Equus Film Festival in Kentucky at the Kentucky Horse Park. And I'm also involved with Equitana USA, and the Equus Film Festival is also going to be a part of that, or they're going to be an extension of that. There will be filmmakers here for that as well. So Patrice, thank you so much for talking to me about your documentary and about talking to a fellow photographer.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for joining me.
Thank
Yes,
you.
same here.